world in the middle of the 13th century knew no hope. From the Far East, a cyclone was unleashed that humanity had never witnessed. The Mongols were not just an army, but an inescapable fate, a force that swept away everything in its path. Kingdoms of China fell before them, and entire nations were erased until the cyclone reached the heart of the world in 1258. The disaster struck Baghdad, the capital of the caliphate, and the jewel of the earth fell, and the heavens shook. The city was plundered for 40 days, and millions of humans were slaughtered. The treasures of knowledge were cast into the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, and the waters were colored with the ink of books and the blood of the many victims. Pulagu, the butcher grandson of Genghis Khan, stood over the rubble and announced that God's wrath had descended upon all of humanity. Dark eyes turned toward the west, specifically toward Egypt, the last stronghold standing against this Mongol crawl. It was either the Great Stand or eternal annihilation for the whole world. Envoys arrived in Cairo carrying a message of arrogance that read, quote, "Know that a mighty king has come, Poto. If your hearts were not made of iron, the earth would have swallowed you whole immediately. Terror inhabited the alleyways, and fear gnawed at the chests of the princes. In the heart of the citadel, there was a man of a different mold. Saif ad-Din Qutuz. He did what no king dared to do. He ordered the execution of the envoys, then hung their heads on Bab Zuwayla. It was a resounding war cry, from which there was no turning back. Qutuz gathered the hesitant princes and said his eternal phrase, "O princes of the Muslims, Sakhi, for a long time you have been consuming the treasury. Now you hate to fight, but I am going alone now. Whoever wishes for jihad, let him follow me, and whoever does not, let him return. God is watching him, and the sin of the Muslims will be upon the necks of those who stay behind." Words that revived a dead soul, and it began. Egypt started preparing for the confrontation in Ramadan of the year 650. The army reached the valley of Ain Jalut in Palestine. It was never a coincidence. It was a brilliant choice by Qutuz to break this enemy. He divided his army with the cunning of foxes and placed Baibars in the center. A small force in the valley. To be the planned bait, he hid the power of the knockout blow behind the surrounding Galilee hills. Kitbuka, the arrogant Mongol commander, had never lost a battle. He saw Baibar's army and assumed it was the entire force rushing toward him. He did not realize that the mountains around him were breathing with rage. The Mongols charged with all their might, dragging behind them the legend of the army. They entered of their own volition into the carefully chosen narrow pass, the trap that would change the face of human history forever. The two armies clashed, and the roar of the heroes drowned out the clanging of swords and the screams. The terrible pressure of the Mongols nearly broke the Muslims' right flank. The scales tipped and retreat began to creep into the weary hearts. In that critical moment which decided the fate of a nation, Qutuz did an act that shook the being of every soldier present. He threw his precious helmet to the ground and shouted a powerful cry, "Wa Islamah! Wa Islamah! O God, grant victory to your servant Qutuz." It was not just a cry, but it was a plea for help. The sky unleashed its fury. The Mamluk cavalry from above the hills like burning lightning bolts. They besieged the Mongols like a bracelet on a wrist. In the narrow valley, the valley turned into a slaughterhouse. Human. And the Mongols realized fear. Yet Puka fell dead under the blows of the killing swords. Immediately, he was buried under the hooves of the Mamluk horses. The army's legend has ended completely. The clamor ceased and stillness descended upon Ain Jalut. Finally, the sound of Tadavid filled the horizons, mingling with overwhelming tears of joy. Qutuz prostrated on the blood-soaked ground in gratitude to God. The world was saved from a nightmare that would have lasted for centuries. The miracle that saved the remaining cities of Islam, Mecca, Medina and Jerusalem were completely spared from destruction and demise. Qutuz departed, and Ain Jalut remained an eternal symbol for the world. Strength lies not in numbers, but in faith. And intelligence is the ability to stand tall when everyone else bows in despair. The Mongols never rose again in the lands of the Muslims. Afterwards, it was proven that the truth, no matter how weak, never dies. The dawn of victory is always born from the darkness of extreme despair.